ACOTAR is basically experiencing Stockholm Syndrome. Just like Feyre, our MMC in the book, I also suffered from Stockholm Syndrome by reading this book. Alright, so today we are recapping and discussing A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, also known as a series that launched approximately 10 million people into Romantasy and somehow convinced the internet that growling is a personality trait that women will drop their panties for. Now, I need to preface and say that this was my very first romance fantasy series. I gave the first book about 2 stars, and honestly, most of the series sat around there for me as well. And yet, I still read all 5 books all in a row in the course of 2 weeks. Go figure. Which then leads me to my working theory that reading ACOTAR is basically experiencing Stockholm Syndrome. Just like Feyre, our MMC in the book, I also suffered from Stockholm Syndrome by reading this book. Yes, you start off thinking this is incredibly mediocre. The plot is quite dull and the writing is questionable at best. I mean, after reading a writer describe feeling nervous as someone having watery bowels more than once makes you question the quality of the writing. Now, who am I to judge a book that has been selling millions and million copies over the years? And then by maybe book 3, you are thinking to yourself, you know what? Maybe this isn't so bad. By book 5, you're defending the characters who've committed these war crimes because they have a traumatic childhood and really, really nice bat wings, so who cares? It's a fascinating phenomenon. Because if I step back now objectively after some time after reading the book and examine this series, there are definitely pacing issues in the book. There is repetition of sentences, of facts, of tropes even. Questionable romances that you're like, I wouldn't choose either of them. Maybe a little bit of inconsistent world building and enough mate bonding to make me think that in this world of the fairy lands, maybe there is only about 12 citizens because they seem to just be bonding to each other and nobody else outside of their little group. So let's talk about the book that started it all. It's time for a twist recap. The whole insane story told. No secrets, no holding back, pure spoilers. You have now been warned. So we start off meeting our MMC right off the bat. Her name is Feyre. She is 19 years old and illiterate, which is mentioned throughout the book that she cannot read. She lives in poverty with her sister and 2 very, very annoying and useless sisters, Nesta and Elaine, who are grumpy and useless for pretty much the majority of this series, or at least very much the first 4 books, I would say. So our Feyre is essentially carrying this entire family on her back. Luckily, she's a second-rate Katniss Everdeen and is good with a bow and arrow since she can hunt, provide food, sells animal skins, and generally acts as the only functioning adult in the household, while everyone else continues to do absolutely nothing. One day though, while she's hunting in the woods, she sees a massive wolf, but this isn't an ordinary wolf. She suspects that it is a fairy in disguise. Now, in this world that Sarah J. Maas has provided, there is the human realm and there is the fairy realm, and they don't mix because they don't like each other, or definitely the humans are scared of the fays, and the fays used to treat the humans not so nicely. There was a massive war centuries ago, and a magical wall now separates the human land from the fairy land, and the fairy land is known here as Prythian. I would hope that is correct, but I could be wrong, but it's a tricky word to say, but I think it's Prythian. Feyre has every reason to be afraid, so naturally she unalives the wolf. This turns out to be, unfortunately, a terrible mistake and decision. Because shortly after, a gigantic beast barges into her cottage demanding justice. The wolf she unalived was actually a fairy named Andreas, and I think he was a bestie of the beast. So the beast gives her 2 choices. You can now die as a punishment, or you can come with me now to live in Prythian for the rest of your life. A life for a life is sort of the bargain here, because you took a life, now I get to take yours and basically control it. Now come and live with me, I'm about to kidnap you. Honestly, this is where the Beauty and the Beast inspiration becomes painfully obvious to us. Feyre, of course, is a survivor and she chooses life and is taken to the spring court by the beast, who then turns miraculously into a very extremely attractive High Lord named Tamlin. Because of course he is handsome, he's all muscle and unfortunately no game. Really, this man has zero charm in my opinion and thinks flirting is basically telling a girl that she looks nice because she's got clean hair. But here is the problem with being only handsome in this world, because everyone in this land is hot and rich. And so if you only have that and no personality, why are you appealing to our MMC? I would ask. Because I think at the start of the book, luckily she's isolated from everybody else and he's the only one that she sort of interacts with at the very start. At the spring court, Feyre slowly discovers that not all fairies are monsters and not to be scared of. She meets Tamlin's emissary, Lucien, who is basically his right-hand man, who immediately, I guess because for this book, becomes one of the more entertaining characters in the series because he possesses a little bit of sarcasm and common sense, at least for now, but the bar is quite low, so please take my description of Lucien with a grain of salt because that might not be the opinion for everybody. Feyre and Tamlin spend months together, and by falling in love, I mean they wander around the gardens, having very awkward, mediocre conversations and occasionally stare at each other. The romance is meh at best, I would say. I never really fully brought into the romance, but apparently it's there and they are now an item. Meanwhile, something strange is happening in this land in Prythian. A blight is affecting the magic of all the courts. Everyone is terrified and no one wants to explain anything to Feyre of what is actually happening in the lands. Then enter our second man, our second fae, Rhysand. Rhysand arrives with all the energy of a man who knows he's going to become the fandom favourite and is quite full of himself, really. He's mysterious, he's morally grey, he smirks every 5 minutes and flirts better than Tamlin at least, so Feyre and the internet are never going to resist this man, I think. Unless you pick up any other Romantasy book and realise there are better out there. Really, please have a look around and know that there are male leads with much more substance than our Rhysand here, but since this is the first romance fantasy I read, I was like, oh yeah, he's not too bad, and also he's a fae and he's magical and he's hot. Eventually, Tamlin sends Feyre back to the human world because he suddenly decides that protecting her is more important than keeping her with him. This lasts only about 10 minutes of the book. Feyre realizes that she loves him and returns to Prythian to be with him, and where she discovers that there's a real problem right now. An evil fairy queen named Amarithia, or something like that, Amarithia, let's say, has conquered Prythian. Alright, so an evil queen is in the land and she's been there all along. This is the secret that people have been keeping from Feyre. Her name is Amarithia and she has conquered this fairy land and rules everyone from a place called Under the Mountain because it is literally hell under a mountain. Tamlin and all the High Lords are basically now prisoners, and she tricked them a while ago and have taken 99% of all their magical powers, which is why she's about to rule the land and take them all under her control. Now, to save Tamlin and release him out of the clutches of this queen, Feyre goes under the mountain and agrees to complete 3 impossible trials, or she can skip all that by answering a riddle. Now, the riddle by the queen describes something like this. This thing is present in both the happiest and darkest moments of your life. It can be both a source of pain and joy, has immense power over people, is something humans and fairies alike experience. But Feyre, she's illiterate, right? So she's not so good with the words. So she doesn't know what the real answer is as yet, and she has to continue with the trial. This section is honestly probably the strongest part of the book because suddenly we have stakes, some action, and characters with more personality than our little Tamlin. Trial 1 involves a gigantic worm that's about to eat you. Trial 2 is essentially a logic puzzle that Feyre has to work out with a little bit of assistance from Rhysand in the crowd. Then trial 3 is probably the most devastating and mentally shifting for Feyre because she has to stab 3 fairies and unalive them. The twist is though, one of the fairy is Tamlin. Except not really, or it is, because there is a loophole because Tamlin doesn't pass away and is absolutely fine. Throughout all of this, Rhysand helps Feyre survive the trials and her injuries, though his methods are, at times, and very much at times, questionable. Basically drugs her, makes her dance in revealing clothing, and generally behaves in a way that the fandom collectively decides to ignore because he has cheekbones and he's hot, but I have a major issue with what he does at this start of the book, which makes it a little bit unforgiving later on. Because my thing is, Rhysand, you are portrayed as being a very cunning and manipulative and smart High Lord. If that is the case, then surely you can find another way than objectifying a woman like that and having to, you know, coast her with substances. And ultimately doing that really did not actually move the plot along or the situation or help them in any way. It was just a plan that didn't come into fruition, and I think you humiliated her and objectified her for no reason at all. Eventually though, Feyre does solve Amarantha's riddle. The answer to the riddle, if you didn't work it out earlier, is love. Yes, the answer is literally love. A reveal so cheesy, my eye roll basically gave me a headache at the end of the day. Now, because Amarantha is an evil queen, even though Feyre has broken the curse now, it doesn't mean that Feyre gets off scot-free, because she breaks her neck and she is unalived. But since Feyre solved the riddle, the curse is now at this point broken, like I said, which means that the power that the evil queen has stolen from all the lords are suddenly returned to their owners, which means also our Tam Tam regains his full power and goes beast mode. Enraged by the fact that this evil queen has unalived his true love, enraged by the fact that now Feyre has passed away by the hands of the evil queen, Tamlin transforms himself into a beast and attacks Amarantha. And Amarantha dies, Tamlin is free. Now, for a book that spends hundreds of pages building up how evil and strong this evil queen is and terrifying she is, and becomes almost like this mystical, untouchable villain, her death is actually surprisingly very quick and simple. All the 7 High Lords, though, revive Feyre by giving her a piece of their power because she did save them after all, and effectively by them giving her a piece of their power, she comes back to life and is turned into a High Fae. So she's now a fairy herself. Feyre and Tamlin can be together. And if this was a standalone fantasy, then we are done right here and they live happily ever after, and you don't have to read any more of this book or series. Except this is a Romantasy series which has sold trillions of books, and there is a lot more to come because Sarah J. Maas needs to make her buck. So the real plot is only just beginning. I think ACOTAR's greatest strength is not that it's exceptionally well written, because we know it's not. It's that it's a compulsive readable book. Sarah J. Maas understands cliffhangers, romantic tension, and making you feel like something huge is just about to happen. It's literally junk food for the eyes and the brain. Is it gourmet? Absolutely not. But somehow you've eaten the entire family-sized bag and now you're on to book 4, defending characters that you didn't even like in book 1. And that, my friends, is A Court of Thorns and Roses. Let me know in the comments, did you love this book or hate it? Or are you suffering from ACOTAR's Stockholm Syndrome just like I am? And tell me, are you Team Tamlin or Team Rhysand? Because I think Feyre, just go it alone, my darling. If you enjoy this recap, as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel because we're just getting started. Next up, we'll be diving into A Court of Mist and Fury, the book that completely changed the trajectory of this series and the love interest, and somehow convinces an entire generation of readers to fall in love with Batwing males who communicate primarily through smirks and a bit of purring. So I'll see you on the next video. Bye.